So I have a story from way back in the day before the land of cell phones. So when I was about 13 or 14, me and my dad drove across country from Florida to California. We took the high road through the mountains and had a good time. And this was back in the late 70s, early 80s, before cell phones. So we were driving through the Grand Tetons. We had SUV. It used to be called a station wagon. Now they call them SUVs. But we had the back like a bed, all of our mattresses and stuff in the back in the bed. And we're driving for a long way through what seemed like a forest. It was the Grand Teton Yellowstone Mountain area. And I fell asleep in the back for a little bit. My dad thought I was totally asleep. We get to the middle of nowhere. This is the only gas station in the middle of Yellowstone, middle of nowhere. And as he's getting out, I say, get me a Pepsi or get me a Coke or something. And I knew he hadn't heard me. So I jump out, and I go wandering around the gift shop, Pepsi area and grab something. And it's a pretty big area. You know, the gas station is actually pretty far from the actual gift shop area. It's actually a pretty big acreage. So I turn around and realize that I can't pay for this because he's got all the money. And I look out the window, and he's actually finishing up getting gas and pulling away in the car. And I should have gone running and yelling like a lunatic, but my fight or flight response didn't kick in for some reason. So I'm sitting there with a Pepsi in my hand at the checkout counter, watching my dad drive away on a trip in the middle of Wyoming or wherever the hell it was. And I go, that's my dad, to the person at the counter. And they go, oh, shoot. Okay. So took them a couple of seconds to get their act together and start to panic a little bit. And they realized that road only goes one place. It goes through the Grand Teton Mountains. There's no other road. And it takes her a few minutes to call someone who knows how to call someone. And they had called up to the gate of the Grand Teton Mountain Range and say, stop every car with one person driving and have them check for their kids. But I guess by the time they actually got someone to do that, my dad had already gone through that gate into the Grand Teton Mountains, which is another 5 or 6 hour drive all the way through the middle of Wyoming and everything.
How long was the drive? The drive like altogether anyway?
Well, I mean, we've been driving for 7 days, but that drive, so like
Jeez.
we got to the station, the gas station started at about, it seemed like maybe 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and I stuck around for a few hours. And by the time they were trying to figure out what to do with me, whether they're going to call the sheriff, and I was going to become like a ward of the state till they figured this out, or go to someone's house. By the time the managers started figuring that out, my dad comes screaming back into the gas station, doing 90 miles an hour through the gas station.
I forgot my kid.
Comes screeching halt, and I just run out to him and say, "Hi, how you doing?" He goes, "What? I thought you were asleep in the back." Because he'd driven, he just let me sleep because he couldn't see me. He couldn't see me in the rearview mirror. He let me sleep. So we drive up back another 3 hours into the Grand Teton Mountains, and he got to the one place where the Grand Tetons, if you ever drive through them, they're great. You're in a forest, a high forest, then the forest stops and you're on a cliff that spreads out for like 300 degrees of mountains. It's an incredible sight. So he had pulled over, of course, to show me this incredible mountain range and saw that I wasn't there. And he does Mario Andretti back to an hour and a half back through the mountains to where I was. And so luckily, if he had let me sleep more, it would have been another 5-hour drive through the mountains. I probably would have been a ward of the sheriff of Wyoming until we figured this all out. But luckily, he wasn't one to let a good view go by. That was kind of the whole point of the trip.
Mm-hmm.
And we saw this fantastic mountain range. And that led to me almost injuring myself a day or so later. Of course, we were very happy to get back together. And he said, make sure you know where I am and we'll be more careful next time. But the SUV had a window that went down in the back. We drove with the back window open. And then next time we stopped, or one of the next times we stopped, I was getting a drink again. And as I'm coming out, my dad, smart Alec, started the car and started to drive away. Really, he was joking. And I, being an adventurous 13 or 14-year-old, actually did a dive through the back window. And I arched my back a little bit and cut myself on the inside rim of the window. But I really could have hurt myself. It was pretty dangerous to jump in through a moving back window. So it just shows taught me don't be a smart aleck with a car. And always check that you got all your passengers when you leave.
Yeah, well, your dad was being smart because he knew
He
that.
was a smart aleck.
I wish
So,
I had met him.
That was our little adventure of, and like I said, but before cell phones, I mean, nowadays it'd be just like, Dad, come get me, you forgot me. Oh, okay.
Yeah, that was before
That
cell
was like
phones.
about a 4-hour adventure that could have been. Now with cell phones, it's unheard of that something like that would happen.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's what happens when you travel.
Bye.
Bye.